Good morning, folks. We've got some space weather in detail, a reason to apply all those pretty satellite bands you saw last night in the Best of Go 16, and news on planets and cosmology as well. But we're beginning at spaceweathernews.com. Finding the last 24 hours on our star relatively calm once again. We've got no solar flares because those bright areas have no sunspots, and the solar wind is calming down as well. Let's look at sunspots long term, revealing not only how weak this last 11-year cycle was compared to the previous cycle, but that we are approaching the minimum values of that monthly sunspot number. The official start of the next solar cycle can't be more than a few months to a year away. Let's look at the southern coronal hole here. We will expect its solar wind to arrive at Earth middle of the week, but we're already magnetically connecting to it now. Using ISWA, we see that small colored area. It's got black straight lines connecting to it. The black lines are meant to represent Earth's magnetic connection to our star. Now the coronal hole is very weak this morning, as you can see by the color, and if that holds, the quakes won't have what they need to reach higher magnitudes. Of course, surges in magnetism can occur over just a few hours, however, and we'll be watching closely for those power changes in our connection point. For more on coronal holes and connection point power and earthquakes, you'll want our second paper from 2015, the one below the co-authored work top right there. So yesterday I was watching a strong thunderstorm group form in the central states when, at the north end, middle of Kansas, the water vapor and cloud returns explode with a separated storm system, quickly expanding to merge their clouds with the larger system to the south. Now, given the focus on fire-induced thunderstorms recently, I figured this could be that. But Sierra's fire temperature return showed zero, absolutely nothing. It wasn't until I slid to the dust band from EU METSAT that you can see the tight feeders of particles up into the clouds at the 7 o'clock position of the little storm. Those little lines are strong dust lift driven by the global electric circuit current flowing up and aiding in the nucleation and condensation profile of the air mass. Very cool. Two quick stories here. First, a hugely but Sierra's fire temperature return showed zero, absolutely nothing. It wasn't until I slid to the dust band from EU METSAT that you can see the tight feeders of particles up into the clouds at the 7 o'clock position of the little storm. Those little lines are strong dust lift driven by the global electric circuit current flowing up and aiding in the nucleation and condensation profile of the air mass. Very cool. Two quick stories here. First, a hugely critical article on planet classification, claiming that chemical composition rather than orbital sharing is the hallmark of a planet decision, and that it should not be up to a vote. The implications of some of these points are that Pluto was wrongfully stripped of its planetary status. Last but not least, please recall that while most mainstream dark matter searches are aiming for the WIMP, their second favorite is the axion, or axion-like particle. Here it's that second one taking a new constraint by remaining, but Sierra's fire temperature return showed zero, absolutely nothing. It wasn't until I slid to the dust band from EU METSAT that you can see the tight feeders of particles up into the clouds at the 7 o'clock position of the little storm. Those little lines are strong dust lift driven by the global electric circuit current flowing up and aiding in the nucleation and condensation profile of the air mass. Very cool. Two quick stories here. First, a hugely critical article on planet classification, claiming that chemical composition rather than orbital sharing is the hallmark of a planet decision, and that it should not be up to a vote. The implications of some of these points are that Pluto was wrongfully stripped of its planetary status. Last but not least, please recall that while most mainstream dark matter searches are aiming for the WIMP, their second favorite is the axion, or axion-like particle. Here it's that second one taking a new constraint by remaining, but Sierra's fire temperature return showed zero, absolutely nothing. It wasn't until I slid to the dust band from EU METSAT that you can see the tight feeders of particles up into the clouds at the 7 o'clock position of the little storm. Those little lines are strong dust lift driven by the global electric circuit current flowing up and aiding in the nucleation and condensation profile of the air mass. Very cool. Two quick stories here. First, a hugely critical article on planet classification, claiming that chemical composition rather than orbital sharing is the hallmark of a planet decision, and that it should not be up to a vote. The implications of some of these points are that Pluto was wrongfully stripped of its planetary status. Last but not least, please recall that while most mainstream dark matter searches are aiming for the WIMP, their second favorite is the axion, or axion-like particle. Here it's that second one taking a new constraint by remaining in the shadows of their imagination. Anyway, folks, we've got wind maps and shots of our star to close. We greatly appreciate your support. We'll do this all again tomorrow, right here. But right now, it's 5:20 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
New York cop and Secret Service agent Dan Bongino says that when the name comes out, as it inevitably will, it will show that this was a deep state operation, not just a Democrat operation.
Toward the end of the week, we started to hear about how important it is that the Republicans get all the documents regarding this secret intel source. They almost regard that information as important as the whole Russia dossier.
Right, and there's a reason, Steve, because, listen, I've spent nearly 20 years of my life as a cop and a federal investigator. I have never in my life seen such an obvious frame job and setup. This was a sting operation against the Trump team. That is why it's critical that they hide the source. Why is it critical that they hide the source, Steve? Because we've been told the entire time by the hacks in the mainstream media, Democrats and some establishment Republicans, that the case against Trump was just a series of accidental contacts where they ran into the Trump team and they said stuff. But, Steve, let me ask you this. What if those contacts were deliberate? That throws this whole story out the window. I've been saying it for months, so have many other people. These were deliberate contacts. This was not a mistake.
I don't know what you mean by
investigation.
that. I don't know what you mean deliberate contact. People set up there to set up people on the Trump team, so set up this interaction and make it look terrible?
Yes, exactly, Brian. It's like, you know, I wind up on a park bench with you and ask you to rob a bank with me, and you've never met me before. You're like, who's this guy? There's only two possible explanations. Right. Either you really want me to rob a bank with you, or I'm trying to frame you for robbing the bank. I'd say it's the latter with Trump.
Well, when you're talking specifically about a source, they say that was embedded in the Trump team that provided a lot of information to Glenn Simpson and the dossier crew, right?
Brian, Simpson's already admitted in sworn testimony in the Senate that the FBI told Christopher Steele they had a source in the campaign. None of this is new news. And by the way, the list of subjects for that source or suspects is very short and very disturbing.
Yeah, it sounds like, according to what we've read, the source was not feeding things to the to Fusion. The source was actually feeding it directly to the FBI.
Yeah, and when we find out who the source is, I think some establishment Republicans are going to be a little worried, too. This was a swamp operation. This wasn't just Democrats. Yeah.
I'm still reporting from outside the one-time free speech capital of the world. Good day. Noble Gold and Silver specializes in converting your fast deflating dollars sitting in your retirement account, your IRA, into gold or silver.
You know, when the Hunt brothers cornered the market in the early 1980s, there was hundreds of uses of silver. Now there's thousands of uses of silver. So when you look at China buying silver mines all over the world, pretty much in every country that they can, Chinese population is putting solar panels on their homes. That use is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So to buy silver in below $20 is, in most estimates, is a bargain. The beauty behind getting into metals right now is that when the stock market corrects, people look for safe havens. They look for stability, and so that they're going to flood into gold and silver, just like they did in 2008. Same thing happened.
Noble Gold has commissioned legendary inflation guru John Williams of shadowstats.com to write Government Lies Exposed, a custom booklet showing how your IRA account in dollars is actually robbing you of your retirement money. Call Charles Thorngren at 877-646-5347 for a quick, no-obligation assessment, and be sure to ask him how to get your special report, Government Lies Exposed.
And it is Sunday night, and for the next few segments, Roger Stone joins us to break down some exclusive information. Now, I don't think it's pearls before swine how much exclusive information we load out to the public here on this broadcast, but this is particularly inside intel. And it's why they fear this broadcast. It's why the establishment attacks it continuously, because we are not controlled. Now, we know that there have been giant disinformation campaigns going on against the White House. And we know that there's been these big lawsuits and criminal charges filed by Mueller, this Clinton operative. And now people are actually showing up in court to challenge him. He's trying to drop the cases. So it's the same thing here. When we say we're going to expose who is the supposed mole inside the Trump campaign, it's like being a mole at your Sunday church service who saw the preacher give a sermon, or a mole that, watched your wife cook eggs in the morning, or a mole who saw you, put your kids' books in their book bag and drop them off at school. It's not like, oh, there's a mole of something illegal, but we know who is connected to the establishment and who was trying to get people early on in the Trump campaign to say things that were incriminating, and who was bringing up Russia first. We know who patient zero is. And so exclusively here, we're going to tell you who the smart money's on as the supposed mole. And joining us from New York in his studios there is Roger Stone, former head of the Trump campaign, worked in 5 administrations, and of course is a best-selling author. Roger, thanks for joining us.
Alex, great to be here.
Well, start rolling with it. You're the expert on this. Let's announce who we believe is the so-called mole who reported nothing.
Well, first of all, let's stop and reflect for a moment on the stunning news that the FBI planted a spy inside the presidential campaign of the Republican candidate for president. This is a tip of the iceberg of the larger scandal regarding the use of the state capacity for surveillance and authority for surveillance, and through the use of phony FISA warrants. This next shoe to drop, the FBI plant inside the Trump campaign, is stunning news. Now, there's a guessing game going on in official Washington as to who the operative is. I've examined all of the evidence and discussed the matter with colleagues, and I believe that it is most likely that the deep mole is Steph Halper. Now, who is Steph Halper? First of all, he is the son-in-law of legendary Bush neocon operative Ray Kleins. Steph Halper was the chief foreign policy advisor to presidential candidate George H.W. Bush when he ran against Ronald Reagan in 1980. His wife, his father-in-law, and he have all extremely deep ties to the deep state, to the CIA, to the National Security Council, into that entire intelligence.
And I should add, he's the one we know with 3 different people out of the blue saying, let me fly you here to discuss Russia. Are you a Russian operative? You know anything about Russians?
Now, I actually have met Steph Halper because former NRA President David Keene had a floating crap game at his home, and I was sometimes a tender. Halper was a very good poker player. He is a duplicitist, very smart, and deeply, deeply committed to the globalist agenda. He has an effacing kind of schlub personality that I think really hides a steel trap mind and a capacity for exactly this type of activity.
So clearly this man is a psychotic.
Well, he is very, very bright. He's very ambitious. He was appointed to high positions in both the Bush and Reagan administrations. He was deeply committed to the one world agenda of the Bushes.
We have a photo of him here, unclothed, classified. We're releasing now. Extremely handsome, I should add.
Well, look, he's a very self-effacing, kind of likable guy.
I'm being sarcastic. We're showing the image of a naked mole right now. That's a joke. Sorry, Roger. I can't help it.
That's okay. But this stunning news, Alex, shows that their whole phony edifice is starting to crumble. Look, they call me a dirty trickster. The Russian collusion hoax, which is covering up the biggest assault on our civil liberties in American history, the largest scandal in American history. Now, that's the biggest dirty trick of all time. And, you know, they're now getting called on it. This is just another major piece of evidence. The FBI penetrating Donald Trump's campaign, that's outrageous. Isn't that what they sent Nixon down for allegedly wiretapping the opposition? In this case, it's even worse because they've used the authority and the capability of the state, where Nixon's bungled job was a private job.
By the way, it's funny you bring that up. Who was it I saw on Friday made this point that Trump wants to expose the Iran deal because it's a bad deal, but also because reportedly hundreds of millions got paid to Obama and others, and we know they were big into that. Well, now the Iranian government, it's on Infowars.com, I forgot to tell the crew, pull it up. The Iranian Press TV, this is the official channel. I don't just believe it if I see it on CNN. Of course, it wasn't on CNN. It was on Infowars.com. I saw it in a Zero Hedge article. I went to Press TV. I should have started the whole show with this. And the mullah, the Ayatollah of rock and roll and Jack and Cola, you know, I mean, my God, keep your wheels spinning and your beavers grinning. This guy says we paid off the Obama administration hundreds of millions, and if you don't roll over, we'll release who we paid off. God, is Trump a genius or what? Please release it. Please release it. Now, that's the Wall Street Journal. FBI had a mole in the Trump campaign. It's on Infowars.com. It's top story. Right before we went live, I forgot to tell you guys, there's a bunch of articles on it, but it's all Press TV, and then it got picked up. Steve Watson wrote about it, but also the first people were the amazing Tyler Durgan over at the Zero Hedge. Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. We'll go to break in a minute, come back with this, because I forgot to even have that in my stack. I'm so punch drunk with all the news. The Iranian government on Press TV, that's their outlet, said, we will expose you with blackmail payments if you don't roll over. Is that not the most desperate, insane behavior we've ever seen? There it is. Iran threatens to expose U.S. diplomats who took bribes to create nuclear deal. Red states got it too. Good Lord, Roger. This is spectacular. What do you make of this?
Maybe it was a rebate. My guess is it was a rebate.
Well, if I got millions of dollars from the Iranians to let them have nukes, I hope I get hung up by my toenails and beaten to death. I mean, that's why they're trying to call us traitors. Everybody knows we're Americans. We're capitalists. We are the country. We're not the ones taking foreign money, Roger.
No, in fact, the reason that the deep state is fighting so ferociously is because they know they're the ones who face jail sentences. They're the ones who face disgrace. They're the ones who have violated the law. They're the ones who've engaged in treason. That's why they must accuse us of these very crimes and destroy us, because it's us or them. And they realize that. And their whole phony facade is crumbling before our very eyes.
And it doesn't matter if Halperin is devastatingly handsome, as you see on screen. That is not going to get him away with this. We'll be back, oh my God, with Roger Stone. This is ecstasy. Their whole criminal operation is imploding. Huge peace deals with North Korea.
Guaranteeing your food independence is a crucial part of prepping. Between debt crisis, natural disasters, or even simple power outages, having a supply of storable meals is crucial. With InfoWars Life Select storable food, you can make sure you and your family are ready for any emergency. With drinks, snacks, and meals in amounts ranging from 72 hours to a full year, there's no better place to look for healthy, easy, and incredible meals. Including meals such as traveler stew, home-style potato soup, and a variety of other meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, InfoWars Life Select storable food will help you eat comfortably in a time of need. They even work great for camping. Simply pack a 72-hour kit to go and you have easy-to-cook and transport food for you and your loved one's trip. Don't be caught surprised by an emergency. Make sure you're stocked up today with all the food you need for an affordable price with InfoWars Life Select storable foods.
All right, everyone, I keep hearing Trump is attacking the First Amendment. Donald Trump is attacking the free press. Oh, no, it's a horrible thing. Even like on Fox the other day, and, I don't really watch it, but catch snippets of it because other people habitually watch cable news. Unfortunately, had to sit through, I can't remember who it was on there and who fucking cares. Someone saying, well, it was okay to attack the press when he was a candidate. Now that he's President Trump, it's too weird and he shouldn't be doing that. It's like, okay. So, in other words, if you have the scope of the corporate media, and what they're referring to is the cable news, like the corporate media, they're not referring to the entire press. I'm part of the press, I just don't have a White House press pass. There's no real difference, legally speaking, between the two, other than access to certain government facilities. Access to a politician or something to sit down with an interview. I couldn't waltz up to the White House and say, oh, I need to interview President Trump right now. Probably wouldn't happen. Lauren Southern, though, did a couple times. I think she still has a press pass, if I remember, which is pretty funny. But no, here's the truth of it. What they're talking about is the corporate media. 90% of their coverage of Trump has been nothing but viciousness. Now, some of that is deserved, like on the Syria strikes and stuff, when people are ruminating about the possibility of a war, speculating it might happen. That's perfectly fair reporting. But when they get into, let's psychoanalyze Trump 3 times this week about his hand size or about mommy issues, when they delve into the tabloid swill, which is a larger and larger proportion of what they're talking about, that's no different than like the Weekly World News. If Trump came out, let's say the Inquirer attacks a politician with some scandal-ridden story, and the politician comes out, denies it, and says, basically, shame on you for spreading lies, nobody's going to say that they're attacking the First Amendment. They're attacking the free press. Well, what's the difference between the Inquirer as a company that does investigative journalism and CNN? The budget is the difference. That's why they have a problem. No, their problem with it is this. The problem of the press and Trump dynamic is really twofold. The first problem is that they're addicted to his tabloid heroin. Donald Trump is the figure of tabloidism. That is, he knows how to get good press, and he doesn't care if it's bad press because he's going to spin it around and make it good. He just wants attention 24/7. He wants to be the only thing the news talks about. He doesn't care if they're saying kind or unkind things about him because he knows he can drown out the Democrats. When's the last time you had any major story about them that wasn't some sort of scandal that had to be reported on? Some minor victory by some Democratic politician. Oh, that's not newsworthy. We're going to talk about Trump maybe having dementia. Oh, Nancy Pelosi saved an orphan from a fire? Nah, who cares? Donald Trump just said fuck on Twitter. And the other part is that he's draining them of credible stories. Normally a president, CNN would report them, they'd go in for an interview, they'd release a statement, something like that. Trump, his White House doesn't really do that. Then he's got Sarah Sanders there attacking, the corporate media too when they attack him. And she's basically his bulldog at this point, which is hilarious. Now, the other part is, he scoops them. That is that they want to be the filter through which the American public sees the things that Trump does. Instead, he just tweets it out. It takes him at least 10-15 minutes to do a write-up. By then, hundreds of thousands of people have already seen and heard of his tweet. Because people in the alt media, look, some person like me on Twitter, I'm just as powerful as CNN. I can retweet that just as easily and make it go viral. Not to as large an audience, but it doesn't take me any more time than it does them. I don't have the spit-shined $1 million camera set up in the $10 million office or a 7-figure salary, but I do have a Twitter account. I do have a I'm on Minds, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Gab, I'm a YouTuber with almost 250,000 people following me. So I can do the same thing that they're doing so long as Trump mainly is putting stuff out on like Twitter. So long as he's putting stuff out online on his own without the filter of the MSM, they can get scooped by all sorts of people. You know, Lionel could be the first person to do a credible write-up about some Trump tweet, and 1 million people all of a sudden view it. It's possible for him to do. It's possible, but Blonde can do that. Matt and Blonde can immediately start a live stream. So war begins, they can start streaming within 5 minutes, I'm sure. That's the power of the alt media. And the alt media, Trump's not attacking us. No, I wish he would defend us from the defamation of the corporate media a little bit more. I wish the Trump admin would come out and say, hey, they need to lay off all the cool kids that are actually doing real reporting. Now, they need to stop defaming people and hiding behind their journalistic integrity and some bullshit like that. Like when BuzzFeed cites Rational Wiki. Yes, really, really proper sourcing. It's hard-hitting investigative journalism. By the way, I'm using this today to drink my coffee. It's all the other cups were dirty, so yeah, you get lazy sometimes. Yeah, you definitely need to clank your spoons a little bit each day. Yeah, here's one for Papa Hilado. Okay, but yeah, the MSM, they're really the ones attacking the First Amendment because they're claiming that Trump, well, they make the same claim about the alt media when they tar and feather us, when they call us extreme. They say, well, it's like when Right Wing Watch comes out. And they label like me an extremist or something. And then my fans dogpile, you know, their page on Twitter. Oh, we're being bullied by extremists. We're being bullied by harassing evildoers. Oh no, it's like so terrible. No, it's called if you attack other people, you can expect them to fight back. And if they have a fan base, all that much better. Yeah, you're gonna get dogpiled. So you poke the bear, you attack someone with 5-10 times as many fans as you have, that just has a smaller budget, and you expect that the fact that you're credible and journalistic and mainstream protects you. CNN has not wrapped its head around this content either. They can't wrap their heads around the concept that people online are part of the media now too. They're part of the media, literally, they engage in the creation of media, of physical media and then digital media, mainly now. Not so much paperbacks. I bought this printing press here, and I will go forth now to print. No, Review Bra might buy a manual printing press at some point. He probably will, or an old typewriter. I'm sure he's probably already got one. Most of us, though, we whip out the laptop. Some people use their smartphones. Of course, I do not own one and never will. I think it's moronic. But the mainstream media, they're the ones attacking. Trump still does have, I reserve the right to think that maybe politicians should have a little bit less with regards to certain constitutional rights. Like the right to privacy sort of goes out the window when you may be involved in a scandal, embezzling money, fraud, something like that, and it affects people that are paying you and they're doing so involuntarily like a mob racket. Yeah, I think you should have less right to privacy if you're in office than a general citizen should have. It should be easier to spy on the government than to spy on a private citizen. That's what I would say. As far as the First Amendment goes, though, he still does have the right to speak and defend himself. He has the right to put things out on Twitter. He has free expression. The press, the corporate press doesn't have any right to tell him that he can't. You're the ones endangering the First Amendment. You set a dangerous precedent in the minds of a lot of people when you declare that you are the only arbiters of truth, you are the only ones legally entitled to speak, nobody should be able to defend themselves against some yellow journalistic hit piece. But the alt media has already been fighting back and we're winning. People trust some person online with a webcam, I think at this point, more than they trust a pundit on CNN or Fox, and then not without good reason. They're the ones that encourage war and stupidity, and they do the partisan thing where a politician from one party or the other does something wrong, they won't even call him out. Like, it works both ways. Come on, when did Fox call out Farenthold? When did Breitbart say, oh, the GOP needs to get rid of him, at least for strategic and pragmatic purposes? I think he's gone now, but I mean, you drag your heels for months. Corporate media on the so-called right never called it out. I did. A lot of people on YouTube did. They didn't. Fox doesn't care if Farenthold is like using taxpayer money to pay off some sex abuse scandal claim, you know, basically public dole money. You do realize politicians are on the public dole. They're basically on handouts for the public from the taxpayers. I think that should be the first entitlement program we get rid of, by the way, is salaries for anyone in Congress who's obstructing. Why don't we get rid of their free health care and their subsidized food and living and everything else? Their taxpayer-funded, basically, blank checks. We should take those away. They should be living on poverty-level income so that they know what it's like to actually be public servants for a while. Make it 1 week out of the year they don't get to use any of their other expenses. They have to live in a tent on the lawn in front of the White House. They have to live in a tent city. All the senators and congressmen, you know, without their cocaine. You know, they're going to go into delirium tremens at that point. They'll be like, oh, someone smuggle us in some malt liquor. We're going to need it tonight. It's going to get, you know, below 70 degrees. I know how tender those swamp-dwelling people tend to be, as far as temperature goes, anyway. But yeah, the MSM is totally wrong. The mainstream media, the corporate media, as far as as money, they're dominant, very much so, hegemonic almost. As far as actual total audience, probably smaller at this point than the alt media, collectively speaking. And they're not honest. They just sit down with politicians and embezzle money and fund political campaigns too. You know, when the parent company of a major so-called U.S. media firm is number one multinational, it's not even based in the U.S., and number two has other companies that donate directly to U.S. political campaigns and to overseas campaigns, don't you think that's a conflict? I think that it is. I think that it's a little bit odd that these people get to hide behind their press passes and claim to be the arbiters of truth when mostly what they do is lie. Then what was it, what's his name there? That Bloomberg, I think it was. You know, the gun control advocate, as in literally disarmament advocate. His candidate of choice couldn't even win here in Vermont, the most blue state of all, even though Phil Scott basically passed the same bullshit. You know, the reason why I wouldn't be voting for him again. But Bloomberg, he comes in and says, well, you know, people are accepting lies and this is dangerous and blah, blah. Yeah, Bloomberg, yeah, like you don't lie at all. Another billion-dollar career politician. An actual career politician. Trump's only been in a political office once in his life. It happens to be the presidency for the last year and a half. All of a sudden, he's the great Satan at large. But somebody else who spends years and years cheating and backstabbing and lying and being slimy and doing the backroom deal thing like all New York politicians tend to do. No, totally fine individual. He's the gold standard. I saw an article yesterday. I think it was Politico. John McCain is like the greatest politician of our time. And I sat there, I couldn't even stand it. I was like chuckling. I was biting my lip to try from guffawing and shattering the windows with the pure loudness of peals of sardonic laughter. John McCain? Oh, you mean that dude that you used to call the devil incarnate a few years ago when he was trying to stand in the way of a handful of things that Obama wanted to do? Oh, John McCain the racist, the sexist, he stands for an evil party. He's going to start World War III, which he probably would have because it would have gotten him off. Yeah. Greatest politician of our times. Why? Because he says, oh, fuck. You know, Trump won. I didn't get to win. Wah, wah, I'm bitter. They're still trying to shield him, like people call him out as the asshole that he is. Like, shame on you, he's a war veteran. Who cares if he fought in a fucking war? And he didn't fight very much. Most of the time he was just in a hotel or a cell, depending on who you ask. And then depending on who you ask, he's either heroic for being tortured and not saying anything, like, you know, some great thing, like other people did that too, or conversely, he did speak to his captors and give them info, and so they sort of supplied him with women and rum or something, I don't know. Who cares? He should have learned from his experience being tortured regardless, and not want to send other people off to war, and the MSN loves him. They absolutely love John McCain. They used to call him boring and racist and evil, and he's a warmonger. They used to get it right. Now all of a sudden, he's the head patriot. Okay, makes total sense to me. That's about all. Peace out.
Hey, thanks a lot for tuning in. My name is Murray Rothbeard. This is the Woke News. See you again tomorrow.